My wife cheated, got pregnant, demanded divorce and alimony. I exposed her to her church, ruining her reputation and getting her expelled. Hello everyone, before we start today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's simple, free, and allows us to keep bringing you great content. Your support means everything to us. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. So, since some of you have requested the complete tale, I guess I should start at the beginning. This is going to be long, but whatever. For the first 4 years of our marriage, my wife, I'll call her Jen, and I felt we were doing well. We met back in college. She was gorgeous as hell and seemed interested in my goals rather than just seeking a party person. I was working on my business degree while she studied education. We hit it off immediately. Following graduation, I embarked on my own consulting business. The first couple of years were sheer hell, working 80-plus-hour weeks, worrying about earning rent, the whole thing. But Jen was quite supportive back then. She would deliver me energy drinks at 2 a.m., give me encouraging speeches when clients ignored me while I was coding, all that girlfriend of the year stuff. She even recommended putting her teaching career on hold to help me build something amazing. It struck me as the most selfless act I'd ever witnessed. Looking back, I should have noticed the red flag waving directly in my face. We moved into a great house in a good neighborhood after my business started producing excellent money. Jen became obsessively connected with a local church. She began leading women's clubs, arranging charity activities, continuously posting Bible verses on Instagram, and preaching about family values and marriage sanctity. However, by the 4th year, things began to feel off. At first, there were little issues. She stopped inquiring about my day. Conversations that used to flow naturally were scripted, as if she was simply checking off boxes rather than genuinely listening. I'd ask easy questions like, "How was Bible study? Who showed up?" And she'd give vague, clipped responses, as if she was eager to shift the subject. What really surprised me was her sudden interest in our finances. Previously, she was pleased with having access to the credit cards and never inquired about the business. She suddenly wanted to know specific numbers. How much did we make last quarter? What's the business valued at now? Do we have assets I don't know about? At first, I assumed she was simply showing an interest, perhaps wanting to get further involved. Then I observed her taking pictures of the financial statements I had left out. One night, I discovered her looking through my office files while I was sleeping. "Just organizing," she said, although I noticed her reviewing documents on her phone. Things were gradually escalating, and I could feel the tension between us increasing by the day. Then her routine changed. Her routine became strange. Random late nights, weekend getaways that didn't add together. She'd leave the house wearing one clothing and return in another, dismissing it with a casual, "Oh, I spilled something." I noted one night how we hadn't spent much time together lately and how she seemed different. She rolled her eyes. "You're imagining things," she stated firmly, without looking at me. Then she suddenly became quite protective of her phone. She bought new, sexier clothes, but I never saw her wear them. She'd come back with claims that didn't fit, such as referencing restaurants in cities she'd never been to or having receipts for only one hotel room when she claimed to have gone with 4 ladies. I did not want to believe it. I assumed I was just worried as a result of my excessive workload. Then, one night, she arrived home late. Her hair was a little disheveled. Her makeup was smudgier than usual, and there was a faint, strange aroma on her, something harsh, like perfume. I didn't have any cologne. I asked casually at first. "Long night?" She hardly glanced at me as she kicked off her heels. "Yeah, Bible study ran late. Then we grabbed dinner. You know how it is." Except, I didn't. Bible study used to stop at 8 p.m., but suddenly she was walking in after midnight as if it were usual. "Smells like someone spilled cologne on you," I commented, watching her reaction. That's when her posture shifted, not guilty, but protective. She scoffed and crossed her arms. "You're seriously paying attention now? Maybe if you weren't always at the office, you'd actually know what's going on in my life." That was not an answer, it was a deflection. And it worked just as she intended, shifting the blame onto me. I could have pushed, but I did not. Because I already knew how this would turn out. If I accused her, she'd cry, alter the story, and blame me for being paranoid and inattentive. I wasn't going to let her distort the narrative, so I got smart about it. I began monitoring credit card statements. I checked her location history after she left her iPad unlocked. Pro tip: women never sign out of their accounts. And, sure enough, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, she spent exactly 2 to 3 hours at a different address in town. An apartment complex. On Thursday, I decided to leave work early. I parked across from the complex and waited. Sure enough, at 2 p.m., Jen drew back sharply. 10 minutes later, he parked next to her. Tall dude. Gym bro type. One of those tribal tattoos on his arm, so cliché. I snapped photos of them walking in together, all touchy-feely. Sitting in my car, seething, I saw my wife, the lady around whom I had constructed my entire world, walk into another man's apartment with the same flirtatious enthusiasm she used to have with me. My mind was screaming at me to storm up there and tear down the door. But I forced myself to stay put. Rage is loud. But what about revenge? Revenge is quiet. When she returned 2 hours later, I shot additional photos. I watched them kiss as if they had all the time in the world, and right then, something in me turned off. No more doubts. I had lost the woman I loved. The guy's name was Eric. I discovered this through her text conversations when she left her phone to shower one night. He worked at her church, possibly as a youth pastor. The irony was too thick. But I did not confront her immediately. Instead, I obtained more proof, including screenshots of texts, further images of their meetings, and hotel receipts from her purse. I even recorded a phone call in which she told Eric that she was about to leave me and that they would finally be together. The most painful thing, however, was not just the dishonesty. It was discovering how long she'd been plotting my ruin. I reviewed her texts with Eric, and what I saw made me literally nauseous. This wasn't a random event. She had been planning for months. I'm waiting for the right moment. He's too busy with work to notice anything. Once I file, I'll push for alimony. He won't see it coming. She wasn't simply going to leave me. She was using me to fund her new life. She and her boyfriend chuckled about how she'd make a nice landing while leaving me high and dry. That's when I realized she wasn't simply walking away. I was making certain she left with nothing. I met with my business accountant after hours and kept it casual. Thinking about restructuring a few things, I reported. Over the next several weeks, I made certain financial decisions, including prepaying my office lease for a year, paying down business debts faster, and shifting my salary so that more money stayed in the firm rather than displaying as personal income. I invested in new equipment which I knew I'd need soon but didn't technically need right now. On paper, it appeared like my business was controlling cash flow. Nothing suspicious, just routine operations that, strangely, made me appear a lot less liquid. At the same time, I created a second personal account with another bank and began moving tiny amounts. Nothing crazy, just enough to make a cushion that she wouldn't have access to. Everything was legal and properly documented. I wasn't hiding money. I was simply making sure she didn't get more than she deserved. And then, unexpectedly, she did me a favor. On a random Tuesday, she decided to blow it all up herself. When I got home from work, she was sitting on our couch with this bizarre, pleased expression on her face. "Mike," she said in a phony kind tone. "We need to talk." I knew what was about to happen but pretended not to know. "What's up?" "I'm pregnant." We hadn't been dating in months, so unless she was carrying baby Jesus 2.0, this wasn't mine. Before I could respond, she twisted the knife. "But it's not yours. I've been seeing someone else. I want a divorce." She stated it as if she were ordering takeout. There is no guilt. Without hesitation. 5 years of marriage, thrown away like an expired coupon. I could feel the wrath rising beneath my skin, and my hands flexed at my sides. Every instinct told me to throw the entire folder of evidence in her face, drag her through the mud right then and there. But then it struck me. It was perfect. She had no idea. No idea I already knew. No idea I had been observing, documenting, and waiting. She believed she was in control. She believed she was the one who ended things. I gave a lazy smirk. I noticed the spark of confusion in her eyes. She was waiting for me to explode, beg, and ask who. But I sat there, quiet as always. She doubled down. "And just so you know, you'll still be paying me alimony. I gave up my career for you, so you owe me." I locked eyes with her. "Jen," I commented. "Did you really think I wouldn't know about Eric?" Her face lost its color. I chuckled. "Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? 2 to 3 hours. Same apartment complex. Same parking spot. You didn't even try to mix it up. You really thought I was that stupid?" She stiffened, her jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, come on." I leaned back and stretched my arms across the back of the couch as if I had all the time in the world. "Bible study runs late, huh? That must be one hell of a lesson plan if it requires lingerie in a hotel room," I told myself. "And Eric, real winner you picked there. Youth pastor, huh? Wonder how his congregation would feel about him knocking up a married woman while preaching family values." She was now completely panicked. She sat up taller, her gaze darting around as if she were looking for an exit. "How long were you going to play with me, Jen?" I inquired, tilting my head. "You and your little boy toy were waiting for the right moment, right? Planning to milk me dry before you ran off together? What was it you said? He won't see it coming?" Her mouth opened and closed like a fish panting for oxygen. I did not let her recover. I stood up. "Let me make something very clear. You are not walking away from this as the winner. You are not taking a damn thing from me that I don't let you have." She attempted to recover, disguising her dread with false assurance. "It's the law, Mike. You can fight it all you want, but you'll lose." I gave her the smuggest smile I'd ever given someone in my life. "If you say so," I answered simply. She felt she was hitting me with the ultimate power move. But, honestly, she saved me the work. All I had to do was smile and make her believe she was in control. Meanwhile, I had already moved 5 steps ahead. The next 2 weeks were bizarre. Jen moved out practically immediately, straight into Eric's place. She filed for divorce, claiming irreconcilable differences. Fancy legalese for I want to bang other dudes without feeling bad about it. I met with a group of lawyers. The first 3 essentially informed me I was screwed. No-fault divorce state was their favorite phrase. Apparently, the fact that my wife was banging the youth pastor and was knocked up by him didn't matter in court. But I kept seeking until I found an attorney, let's call him Paul, who didn't sugarcoat the situation. Look, man, I'm not going to lie to you, he told you. You're probably going to have to pay her something, but we can try to minimize the damage. I then showed Paul my financial statements. He raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing on some of these business expenses and restructuring, he commented, looking at me. He didn't say anything else. He couldn't legally advise me to hide assets, but I could sense he knew what I'd done. Well, this might help reduce the alimony calculation somewhat, but in this state, you're still looking at significant payments. That is when the wheels started turning. The courts may not care about her cheating, but her holier-than-thou church cronies will. I chose to remain cool during the divorce proceedings. Let her believe she was winning. Give her only enough rope to hang herself. Court day was weird. I arrived in my nicest suit. Jen arrived with her pricey lawyer, dressed modestly, as if she were auditioning for Sister Wives. It was almost funny how false the act was. Before we even started, the judge appeared to be extremely bored. Jen's lawyer spoke first, spewing rubbish about how she gave up her bright profession to support me, how she managed our home while I established my business, and how she deserved compensation for her contributions to the marriage. Then it was our turn. My lawyer provided the evidence, her adultery, the pregnancy, and the fact that she was already living with Eric. Her attorney stood up. Your Honor, let's not forget that we are in a no-fault state. He stated it so smugly, as if those 3 words erased everything she had accomplished. While my client deeply regrets that her marriage did not work out, the law is clear. Marital misconduct is not a factor in determining spousal support. What is relevant is the financial disparity between these 2 parties. Hearing how carelessly they discarded all she had done made me want to tear the entire courtroom apart. She cheated. She lied. She became pregnant with another man's child. And I was still supposed to pay her for leaving me. My lawyer pushed back, setting out all of the information again, highlighting how she wasn't simply leaving a marriage, but also establishing a financial safety net while living with someone else. But the judge only sighed, waiting for us to finish. When it was time for the ruling, he cleared his throat and lowered the hammer. While the court acknowledges Mr. Walker's concerns regarding his wife's infidelity, the law in this state is clear. Spousal misconduct is not a factor in determining alimony. Jen sneered at me from across the room. The judge proceeded. Given Mrs. Walker's financial dependence during the marriage and her current unemployment status, the court finds that she is entitled to spousal support. Mr. Walker will pay $4,500 monthly for a period of 4 years or until Mrs. Walker remarries. $4,500 every month for 4 years, to the woman who cheated on me while carrying another man's child. I felt as if I were taking wild medicines. But fortunately, my financial decisions had paid off. Sort of. Rather than being left with a $6,000 monthly payment, the judge reduced it to $4,500. Not ideal, but better than nothing. What is the best part? Jen and her lawyer had no idea about the money I still had tucked away. Or that my business would miraculously recover once this was all over. Jen couldn't help but appear smug as we walked out of court. Told you, she said quietly as we passed. Should have just agreed to my terms from the beginning. Then she had the audacity to phone Eric right in front of me. Baby, it's done, we won, she giggled like a teen. He has to pay. I told you the judge wouldn't care about the other stuff. I said nothing. Just watched her walk away, believing she had pulled off the ultimate deception. But the game was only getting started. I paid the first alimony check on time. I did not complain. Did not raise a fuss. Even sent a courteous email. Payment sent, please confirm the receipt. Jen appeared surprised. She undoubtedly expected me to be bitter, fight, and give her more ammunition. Instead, I played the ideal ex-husband, polite, timely with payments, aloof but not aggressive. She had no idea what was coming. Jen was more than simply a Harvest Community Church member. She was also their poster child. She led the women's ministry. She organized marriage retreats. She stood on stage throughout services, discussing God's plan for holy matrimony. Her father was a deacon. Her mother ran Sunday school. The entire family portrayed a wonderful Christian image. And I knew they'd throw her under the bus the moment they discovered who she truly was. I had collected everything. DNA testing results. Time-stamped images of her and Eric. Provide screenshots of their explicit texts. Hotel receipts. She even recorded herself insulting her religious mates for being uptight prudes. That one was especially juicy. I put everything in a neat professional folder and attached a cover letter that was really courteous and formal. To the elders at Harvest Community Church, I regret bringing this to your attention, but as a fellow Christian, I believe it is my responsibility. My ex-wife, Jennifer Walker, who oversees multiple ministries in your church, has been engaging in behavior that defies your church's principles. I've given documentation of her infidelity, which began during our marriage and resulted in a pregnancy that isn't mine, as proved by DNA testing. Jennifer is now living with this man and receiving considerable alimony from me. I'm sharing this not out of spite, but out of concern for the integrity of your ministry. Respectfully, Michael Walker. I dropped off the box early Sunday morning, when no one was present. Then I returned home and waited for the storm to hit. The Sunday after I sent my small care box, my phone blew up. Text messages from common church friends. Dude, WTF did you do? Pastor just called an emergency elder meeting before service. Jen is losing it. I simply turned off my phone and went back to sleep. It felt fantastic, not going to lie. Later that afternoon, I received a voicemail from Jen. She was shouting so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You absolute piece of, how could you do this to me? They kicked me out of the women's ministry. My dad won't even look at me. You've ruined everything. I deleted it without phoning back. I don't need that negativity in my life. More messages arrived throughout the week, each more urgent than the last. Her church friends ignored her. Her parents were taking time to pray about the matter, which is church talk for we're disappointed in you. The Christian school where she volunteered begged her not to return. Even Eric was getting cold feet. Apparently, he did not sign up for all of this turmoil. He thought he was receiving a lovely woman and a solid alimony payment. Instead, he became a social outcast, with a baby on the way and a lot of baggage. By Friday, he had kicked her out of his flat. So much for pure love, right? Jen was summoned to a formal disciplinary hearing with the church elders 1 week after I dropped my evidence. I know because she called me, sobbing. Mike, please, they're going to publicly discipline me, she screamed. Do you know what that means? They'll announce it to the entire congregation. Everyone will know. They already know, Jen, I replied bluntly. That's kind of how church gossip works. My dad might lose his position over this. My family has been at Harvest for 3 generations. Should have thought about that before you fucked the youth pastor. She fell silent for a second. Then, in a soft voice, he's not talking to me anymore. Who? Your dad? No. Eric. He said this is too much drama, that I misled him about the divorce being clean and simple. I couldn't help laughing. So your soulmate bailed the second things got tough? Shocking. I have nowhere to go, Mike. My parents won't let me stay with them. None of my friends are returning my calls. Sounds like a personal problem. Can I come home? Just until I figure things out. This woman has an incredible amount of courage. It's not your home anymore, Jen. You gave that up when you decided to cheat. She began crying again, big, theatrical sobs. What am I supposed to do? Get a hotel. You've got alimony money coming in, figure it out. Then I hung up. Cold? Maybe. But after what she pulled, my sympathy tank was completely empty. The church hearing took place Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, the news had spread throughout the neighborhood. Jen had been formally identified as an adulteress and dismissed from all church responsibilities. The preacher even preached an entire sermon about the sacredness of marriage and the consequences of sin, never mentioning Jen specifically but making it abundantly clear who he was referring to. Her parents took a break from church leadership. Her sister postponed her wedding, which was due to take place at Harvest. The entire family was essentially in exile. And Eric? He'd already requested a transfer to another church site in a faraway state, leaving Jen pregnant and alone. I remained on the sidelines throughout. I did not have to lift a finger. The community she admired most had done all of the difficult lifting for me. Small religious communities are tied to everything. Jen's church collapse set off a chain reaction that I could not have predicted better. First, the private Christian school where she worked part-time experienced budget constraints and canceled her position. The principal couldn't even look her in the eyes when he told her. Then, her volunteer gigs began to dry up. The Crisis Pregnancy Center, where she counseled young women, determined that her current circumstances made her a bad role model. The organization where she conducted donation drives informed her that they are restructuring their volunteer program. Every aspect of her identity was gradually chipped away. And I just kept paying the alimony check every month, on schedule. 3 weeks after the church controversy surfaced, I received a text from our former neighbor. Jen's living in her car in the Walmart parking lot. I did not respond. But later that night, I drove past. Sure enough, Hero Honda was parked in the far corner of the lot. I could see her silhouette in the driver's seat, lit by her phone screen. The following day, she called me again. I lost my job, she explained. Her voice was flat, no tears this time, just a hollow defeat. That sucks. The baby's due in 5 months. No one will hire me. My parents still won't talk to me. I said nothing. I've been sleeping in my car, she eventually acknowledged. I can't afford both a car payment and an apartment on just the alimony. Sounds like poor financial planning. She breathed sharply. Is this what you wanted? To see me completely destroyed? I considered it for a second. You know what? Yeah. Pretty much. I was stupid. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt you. I shut her off. I don't care. She swallowed back a sob. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I smirked. Cool, good luck with your new life. And that's when I decided to play my last card. It's time to terminate this on my terms. Actually, I added, keeping my tone casual. I might have a solution that works for both of us. What kind of solution? Jen inquired, suddenly attentive. I could almost sense the anguish in her voice. I'm getting tired of writing these monthly checks, I added casually. And my business is expanding. I'm looking at opening an office in Singapore. Might move there for a while? What does that have to do with me? Well, international alimony enforcement is complicated. I waited to let it sink in. And I've been talking to a new lawyer who thinks we might have grounds to revisit the settlement, based on some creative interpretations of the law. Of course, that was complete crap. But Jen didn't realize it, and she was in no position to dispute me. What are you saying? She inquired. Her voice sounded panicked. I'm saying I'd like to buy you out. One lump sum payment instead of monthly alimony for the next 4 years. She remained silent as she considered the situation. How much? She finally inquired. $90,000. Cash. Tax-free. You sign a document releasing me from all future obligations, and the money's yours today. Jen had no idea I could afford that lump sum simply. The actions I made earlier had saved a large portion of my money, and my business was already recovering. She and her lawyer never discovered half of what I had. To her, $90,000 felt like a lifeline, but in reality, it was less than half of what I'd give her over the entire alimony period. A huge reduction. However, for someone living in their car, pregnant and broke, that probably sounded like winning the lottery. I don't know, she said. My lawyer said. Your lawyer isn't sleeping in a Walmart parking lot, I told him. And this offer expires in 24 hours. After that, I start the process to challenge the alimony ruling, and you get nothing while we battle it out in court for the next year or two. More silence. I could almost hear the wheels moving in her mind. Can I think about it? Sure, you've got until this time tomorrow. Then, I'm moving forward with the challenge. I hung up without waiting for an answer. She called again 2 hours later. I'll take it, she replied gently. Smart choice. I'll have the paperwork ready in the morning. Meet me at my lawyer's office at 9 a.m. Mike. Her voice sounded tiny. Thank you? I nearly laughed. Don't thank me, Jen. This isn't mercy. It's business. The following morning, she arrived at the lawyer's office looking like pure hell. She had dark circles under her eyes, her hair was unkempt, and she was dressed in the same clothes I had seen through the car window. My lawyer had the documentation ready, a full release of all future alimony obligations in exchange for a one-time payment. I had already prepared the cashier's check. Jen had barely read the contracts before signing. When my lawyer slid the check across the table, her hands trembled as she took it. So, that's it? She inquired. We're done? I nodded. Completely done. I don't ever want to hear from you again. She appeared to want to say something more, but instead she simply nodded and walked out. As the door shut behind her, my lawyer shook his head. You know, most guys in your position wouldn't have offered her anything. I informed him, it was worth 90 grand to be free of her forever. And I intended it. The monthly payments didn't damage me financially, but they were a continual reminder of how she had duped me. I was now entirely cut loose. I'm free to move on, without her shadow hanging over me. Besides, I knew Jen. She'd spend that money in 6 months, tops. Then she would have nothing. No alimony. No job prospects. No backup plan. Meanwhile, I would be establishing my empire, living my best life, and never looking back. Around 6 months later, I ran into her at a gas station. It wasn't planned, just one of those random occurrences. She appeared harsh. Still pregnant, or possibly pregnant again. I didn't ask or care. She was driving a beat-up old Civic, not the lovely automobile she had during our marriage. When she spotted me filling up my new BMW, she froze, like a deer in headlights. I nodded to her simply to be polite. She walked over with hesitation. There was awkward pause, and she said, "How are you?" I shrugged. "Business is good, life is good." She nodded and looked down at her feet. That's good." More uneasy silence. "The money's gone," she finally said. "I had to pay off debt, and the rest went to rent and food." I simply gazed at her. "Not my problem." "I know, I don't know why I'm telling you this." I finished pumping gasoline. "Well, good luck with everything." I began to get back into my car, but she spoke again. "I'm sorry, Mike, for everything. I really am." I gazed at her for a long time. Was it satisfying to watch her like this? Honestly, Not as much as I expected. I didn't feel bad for her though. Too little, too late, Jen. Then I got into my car and drove away. Have not seen her since. Things for me have been going great. I met this lovely woman, she is incredible. She has her own marketing agency, works hard, plays hard, and does not play games or pull any BS. We moved in together 3 months ago. There's no urgency to marry again. Once bitten, twice shy and all that. But really, I could see it happening with her someday. She's the real deal. I tried not to get involved in Jen's affairs, but knowledge spreads quickly in a small town like this. Furthermore, we still have some mutual acquaintances who periodically send information my way. How much did I give her? $90,000. Gone in 4 months. Apparently, she used some to pay off credit card debt I had no idea about, bought a cheap apartment, and blew away the rest trying to maintain her lifestyle rather than adapting to her new circumstances. Jen's style is classic. I was never able to budget effectively. She had the baby, a boy. Eric is legally obligated to pay child support, but from what I've heard, he's a deadbeat who consistently falls behind. As previously said, he relocated to Ohio and has little to no contact with the child. I guess his call to youth ministry didn't extend to his own children. Shocking. Jen attempted to continue her teaching career, but her reputation followed her. She refused to attend any Christian school. She lacked current experience, which public schools preferred. Last I heard, she was working in a call center, earning little more than the minimum wage. What is the actual karma? What happened to her family? Her parents eventually forgiven her after 8 months of avoiding her, but their relationship is still tense. They occasionally assist with the infant, but they are constantly making comments about horrible life choices and dealing with the consequences. Her sister keeps her distance, clearly concerned that Jen's reputation may impact her own standing in the church. Jen attempted to rejoin the church community, but it did not go well. Although she can attend services, she is barred from all leadership positions indefinitely. She sits in the back and exits immediately after the service ends. No longer women's ministry, no more marital retreats, no change in social position. The ultimate irony. A common friend informed me that she has been telling people she made a mistake and should have worked on her marriage. Too late. As for me, I am doing better than ever. Business is thriving, the relationship is stable. I'm finally doing things I never had time for. I received my pilot's license. I took up mountain riding. I've even begun learning guitar. Lesson learned? Sometimes the worst things that happen to you result in the best version of your life. You simply have to be willing to burn the bridges that must be burned, and never look back. So I suppose that's it. I probably won't post an update on this whole situation because, honestly, I'm not thinking about Jen much these days. I have better things to focus on. Oh, and one last thought for anyone going through something similar: record everything. Capture screenshots. Save text. Gather evidence. It may not be useful in court, no-fault divorce laws and all, but knowledge is power. And you never know when you might need that power. Goodbye, Reddit. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.